properly warned be you, says I. Don't go any further. Things will be spoiled. All right, so last night on The Mandalorian was a big episode where the Razor Crest gets destroyed. See, I told you, spoiler alert. So that really got me thinking about a video I had already thought, well, I kind of planned, but sort of now rushed this through the production schedule. The idea of killing off heroes, or in the case of last night, killing off a hero's ship. Because a hero's ship is often a character into itself. There are many, many sci-fi properties where the main characters, the good guys, or even the bad guys' spaceship, is just as much a character in the show as the characters. And while the Razor Crest has been through a lot over 2 seasons, we've, seen it smashed to pieces, fallen through ice, we've seen it picked apart by Jawas, and, put together again, and, we've seen it dunked into the ocean and pulled out by a crane. But after last night's episode, it's pretty clear that it is no more. And this raises the question of the very expensive vintage collection Razor Crest that was pre-sold on HasLab recently with all the bells and whistles, figures included, extra figures included, escape mods included, carbonite included. I mean, it's an amazing vehicle. It looks really, really, really cool. And it now no longer exists in continuity. So that definitely brings up quite a few points. So while you could still recreate all of the adventures from Season 1 and, 80% of Season 2, there's a good shot Mandalorian will go on for quite a few seasons and likely to be Razor Crest-less. I mean, I guess you could always buy another one, but it won't be the same ship. So now that it has been more or less destroyed by fire from above, I'll let you watch the show to see the actual, moment there, but more or less. What does this mean about toy, showrunner, and management decisions to basically destroy the hero's ship, especially after you've sold a giant expensive version of the toy? All right, so to examine this fully, let's take a look at Rogue One, another Star Wars property. The reason I want to examine Rogue One is because, similar to the Razor Crest getting destroyed, in Rogue One, nobody survives. All of the heroes, don't make it out of the movie. And this relates directly to the sale of toys, action figures, and collectibles, both for kids more and adults, but especially for kids. So I've mentioned in several videos about how children have to have an emotional connection to the toys they buy. They have to sort of see them as avatars for their imagination, and they're going to be drawn to characters that remind them of themselves. But, I mean, of course, they're also going to get, Wookiees and droids and monsters and all sorts of things. They're not just going to get, human male or human female because that's what they are. That's usually just who they start with. But in Rogue One, as I mentioned, nobody makes it out. Every single hero has a tragic end. So there's no room for further adventures. These characters have a definitive end and stopping point. Even the droid that was supposed to be, that was explained to toy makers as a combination of Chewbacca and C-3PO to be the ultimate Star Wars character, well, this ultimate Star Wars character didn't make it out of the movie alive. So he couldn't have further adventures, which is what you need in order to continue to sell toy lines. One of my favorite channels on YouTube is How It Should Have Ended, and they did an amazing job on Rogue One. I definitely recommend seeing it. I'll put a link here in the video. It is awesome. So what about other heroes who didn't make it out alive? And how does that affect toy sales? Look at something like Iron Man, who recently died in Endgame. Well, absolutely. Is this guilty of the same thing, of killing off your main heroes, like Rogue One and what happened to the Razor Crest? Yes, to some degree. I mean, Iron Man, granted, has had 20 films, and granted, while he didn't make it out of Endgame, his sacrifice was really needed for all the other heroes to make it out. I mean, Black Widow too. But the point is, he had quite a tour of duty, and I'm also kind of hedging a bet that he's going to be back, especially with the whole multiverse being introduced in the next Doctor Strange. But let's just, put a pin in that for a moment and look at some other on-screen character deaths. So let's go back to Star Wars. One of the the first deaths in the Star Wars saga was Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so you're going to say, well, okay, let's why would Obi-Wan be killed off? Because then you can't sell Obi-Wan toys. Well, Obi-Wan is different. He's not the hero. He's the hero of like episode 2, but in episode 4, he's the advisor, and he even comes back as a ghost and is able to continue to advise Luke. His role in the film is not as the primary hero, and this follows exactly along with Joseph Campbell's book, A Hero with a Thousand Faces, which explains the hero's journey. And when a movie follows this structure, it does so much better with the audience because it appeals to the innate expectations and understanding culturally of what we as a society see a hero needing to do. And a big part of that is the hero needs to survive. Yes, the advisor, the mentor, can, be bumped off, but that's part of the hero's journey. Okay, so what about an example where the hero does die? Let's look at something like The Matrix, right? Again, spoiler alert for a 20-year-old movie, Neo does not make it out of the trilogy alive, although I think he's coming back in Matrix 4, and that's a video for another time. So in this case, Neo's journey in the Matrix films is much more of an allegory for Christianity and for Jesus. He even dies, if you will, on the cross in a crucified type moment. But more importantly, The Matrix is rated R. It's not a children's movie. Yes, there were toys, but the toys are aimed at adult collectors, not kids. So you don't need to sell unlimited toys in the toy aisle. This is not a child's plaything. This is an adult collector display thing. So the rules don't apply the same way as they did with Rogue One, where all of the main heroes died, no longer allowing children to play out continued adventures of these characters that they've ideally fallen in love with after screen time. So let's get back to spaceships. So that's how I started this video. Spaceships are just as much a hero, especially in the Star Wars universe, as the heroes. And that's why it's important that they also make it. And believe me, it's not just Star Wars. There's tons of sci-fi properties where the ship itself is very beloved by the fan community. And the ship itself more or less becomes a character in the film. For example, in Return of the Jedi, in the original, not just screenplay, but how it was shot, the Falcon doesn't make it out of the Death Star 2. It gets blown up inside of it, and doesn't have the heroic victory that it does in the reshoots, where it escaped the Death Star. And of course, it took Lando Calrissian with him. Hence Han's line about not thinking he's going to see the Millennium Falcon again when they're leaving for Endor on the stolen Imperial shuttle earlier in the film. So Lando and the Falcon originally were not going to make it through the movie, and when this was put in front of a test audience, almost unanimously, the test audience said, no, this is not good. We do not want the Millennium Falcon and Lando to die, to not make it out. And so it was changed so that the Millennium Falcon can now go on to be in merchandise and beloved for a whole new generation for years and years to come, making Lucasfilm and now Disney lots and lots of royalty money as merchandise of the Falcon itself is sold, with or without action figures. It has become a character into itself, as just as much as part of Star Wars as Chewbacca, Darth Vader, or R2-D2. So much so that it showed up in Episode 7 for reasons, being on Jakku for reasons. But when it was introduced, it got a little fanfare. And, it now gets to go off into the sunrise, surviving yet another trilogy to have more adventures. But that's the whole point. Kids can play those adventures out. So now that the Razor Crest is no more, and I know this was a collector SKU, but it was a collector SKU that collectors spent a lot of money to pre-order. And now that it doesn't exist anymore, in a way, part of it is, how do we feel about that? Killing off main characters and killing off main characters' ships, while it feels like a dramatic moment to, get people off their seat, it's not good for toy sales, especially toy sales to kids. And while, it feels like something that, would help keep the story going, it actually has the reverse. And it tends to not make kids happy, or kids get into the toy line, Rogue One being a perfect example. If the Rogue One heroes had survived the movie, I think we'd see a lot more kids playing with them and a lot better toy sales for them. Will the same thing happen with the Razor Crest? Well, for those who pre-ordered, hope you enjoy it. because the further adventures of the Razor Crest are now going to be in your collector room, and unfortunately no longer seen on screen. And I'm sad about that, I am. It was a great ship. May it live on. If you like this video and have comments about it, please leave them below. I answer every single one. And leave a like and a subscription. It helps tell YouTube to share this with more people. And that's kind of the whole point. Share the toy love. See you next time.